I had never imagined that doing this with my dog when my husband was away could turn into the most exciting day of my life. It all started a couple weeks ago when my husband left me and our dog Bailey at the house leaving for a business trip. The house was always quiet when he was gone, the kind of silence that felt heavier than the absence of sound. I'd grown used to it over the years. His business trips were frequent, each lasting days or even weeks. It wasn't that I begrudged his work. It paid for our cozy suburban life, the sprawling backyard, and the home that felt too big for just the two of us. Or, as it often seemed, just for me and Bailey. Bailey, our golden retriever, was my constant companion. He had been part of our family for 5 years now, ever since we picked him up as a fluffy, clumsy puppy. Over time, his presence had become my anchor, while my husband worked long hours or traveled to distant cities. Bailey was there, greeting me with a wagging tail, a warm nuzzle, and those soulful eyes that seemed to understand far more than a dog should tonight. Was one of those nights, the kind where I felt the weight of the empty house pressing down on me. I tried filling the silence with music, the TV, even an audiobook, but nothing helped after dinner, a lonely affair with leftovers reheated in the microwave. I curled up on the couch with a glass of wine. Bailey sprawled at my feet. He always stayed close, as if sensing that I needed him more on these nights. I reached down, letting my hand rest on his thick, golden fur. "You're all I've got tonight, huh?" I murmured, my voice barely louder than a whisper. Bailey responded with a low, contented huff, his tail thumping softly against the floor. The bond we shared had always been special. He was more than just a pet. He was a confidant, a presence that filled the gaps left by my husband's absence. Over time, I'd begun to notice how much I relied on him, how his quiet companionship brought me a comfort I couldn't find elsewhere. It wasn't just his loyal "need you, don't you?" He wagged his tail, his eyes shining with a warmth that made my heart ache. It was moments like these that reminded me how much he meant to me, how much he had become a part of my life in ways I hadn't expected. He wasn't just a dog, he was a lifeline, a reminder that I wasn't entirely alone. I stayed on the couch with Bailey for hours, the weight of the evening slowly lifting as his presence filled the empty spaces. By the time I finally got up to head to bed, I felt lighter, more at peace. Bailey followed me as he always did, curling up on his bed at the foot of mine. As I turned off the light and lay down, I found myself whispering into the darkness. "Good night, Bailey. Thank you for being here." And while I said him goodbye, something struck me all of a sudden. The look in his eyes excited me. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the loneliness, the longing to feel some excitement when you're alone with your dog. That often, I just don't know. At least I didn't know yet. At that moment, later on, I would definitely find out. And it made me do things I would have never imagined. And so the next morning, I awoke to the sound of Bailey's tail thumping against the floor. He always seemed to know when I needed an extra push to start the day. His golden eyes peeked over the edge of the bed, and I couldn't help but smile as he let out a low, cheerful bark, almost like he was saying, "Good morning, let's get moving." I swung my legs over the side of the bed, scratching his head as he nuzzled against me. All right, I'm up," I said, with a chuckle. Bailey darted to the bedroom door, pausing to look back at me as if urging me to follow. It was our routine now, his quiet insistence that life goes on even when the house felt too big and too quiet. Without my husband around after breakfast, Bailey trotted to the sliding glass door leading to the backyard, his tail wagging. In anticipation, I grabbed his leash from the hook by the door, and his excitement grew, his whole body vibrating with energy. A walk was exactly what I needed to clear my mind and shake off the remnants of last night's reflections. The neighborhood was still waking up, the streets quiet, except for the occasional chirp of birds and the distant hum of a lawnmower. Bailey stayed close to my side as we walked, his leash slack, his steps matching mine. It was one of the things I loved most about him. His calm, steady presence. Even when the world felt chaotic, Bailey had a way of grounding me, of reminding me to focus on the moment. As we passed the park, I decided to let him off the leash. He bounded ahead, his ears flopping as he ran, the sheer joy of it, bringing a smile to my face. Watching him like that, so free and full of life, always made me feel a little lighter. I sat on a nearby bench, letting the warmth of the sun wash over me as I kept. As the evening stretched on, I found myself reflecting on the bond we shared. It wasn't just the loyalty or the companionship, though those things were certainly part of it. It was the way Bailey seemed to see me, to understand me in a way that felt almost human. He was more than just a dog. He was a reminder that I wasn't alone. Even in the quietest, loneliest moments, I stayed on the couch with Bailey long after the sun had set. The two of us cocooned in the quiet warmth of our shared space. It wasn't the life I'd imagined for myself, but in that moment, it felt like enough. The days blurred together, the routine of my life, steady but uninspiring. My husband's return was delayed again, another trip that had stretched longer than planned. I told myself I was fine with it. After all, I'd grown accustomed to his absences. Yet as the days passed, I found myself leaning on Bailey more and more. It was late afternoon when I stood at the kitchen sink scrubbing dishes while Bailey lay sprawled in the doorway, his ears twitching in response to the faint sounds of the neighborhood. The golden light streaming through the window bathed how much I'd needed this time. Away from the house, from the routine, from the thoughts that had been circling my mind. Bailey trotted beside me, his steps in sync with mine, and I felt a surge of gratitude for him. He wasn't just my dog, he was my constant, my anchor, the one thing that made the loneliness bearable. The drive home was quiet. The setting sun, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. B curled up in the passenger seat, his head resting on his paws, his breathing steady and rhythmic. I reached over, letting my hand rest on his back, and felt a sense of peace I hadn't known I was searching for when we arrived home. The house felt less empty, less oppressive. Bailey followed me inside, his tail wagging as he settled onto his bed by the couch. I sank onto the cushions, feeling a quiet sense of contentment. The bond I shared with Bailey was unlike anything else in my life, pure, uncomplicated, and steady that night. As I lay in bed, Bailey at my feet, I found myself reflecting on the connection we shared over me. It was unlike anything I'd ever felt, a mix of comfort and longing, of gratitude, and something deeper that I couldn't quite name. "I don't know what I'd do without you," I whispered, my voice trembling slightly. Bailey responded with a soft nuzzle, his nose brushing against my cheek as his tail wagged once more. It was as though he understood, as though he felt the same unspoken bond that had grown between us the minute stretched on the world outside the house. Forgotten as I stayed there with Bailey, the connection between us wrapping around me like a lifeline. It wasn't just that he was here, that he was loyal and steady and always by my side. It was the way he made me feel, seen, understood, in a way I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't sure how long we stayed like that, but when I finally pulled back, my heart was racing, my breath shallow. Bailey's eyes were locked on mine, his expression calm but intense, as though he was waiting for something. My hand lingered on his head, my fingers trailing down to his collar as I struggled to find the words to explain what I was feeling. But there were no words for this. No way to capture the depth of what Bailey meant to me, of how emotions swirling inside me. For years, I had buried my feelings, pushed them down beneath the surface to keep life running smoothly. But Bailey had a way of drawing them out, of making me confront the loneliness I had tried so hard to ignore. His unwavering loyalty, his quiet understanding, it had been a lifeline, one I hadn't realized I needed until it was too late. Bailey was looking at me with those eyes again, and all of a sudden, I just couldn't resist it anymore. We had a bond so close, I just needed to give in. It was as if he was telling me that he could fill my void of loneliness with some excitement. I leaned in towards him, and he immediately knew I kissed him, and there was such a tension between us that I can't quite name. His tail was moving very fast, and of course I can't go into full details, but I can tell that I let myself go. I went on my knees and turned around. Wow. When Bailey was doing his thing, I could have never imagined that it could be that good. The bond we shared even strengthened what we were doing. It was so amazing. After I think 30 to 40 minutes, he finished, and I sighed, leaning back against the cushions. "What are we doing, Bailey?" I asked softly. My voice tinged with a mix of wonder and confusion. He looked up at me, his golden eyes meeting mine, and for a moment it felt like he was waiting for an answer too. The rest of the day passed in a haze of mundane tasks and fleeting moments of clarity. I folded laundry, cleaned the kitchen, and walked Bailey through the neighborhood, all the while feeling the weight of the bond we shared pressing against me. It wasn't something I could ignore anymore, no matter how hard I tried. By the time evening rolled around, I felt restless, a nervous energy thrumming through me that I couldn't quite shake. I grabbed Bailey's leash and headed out the door. Needing to clear my head, the air was crisp and cool, the faint scent of wood smoke drifting on the breeze as we made our way to the park. Explanation. It was something I didn't fully understand, but I knew it was real, and that was enough. As the hours ticked by, the house grew quieter, the world outside fading into the stillness of the night. I stayed on the couch with Bailey, his presence a steady comfort as I let myself drift into a peaceful haze. Whatever the future held, I knew one thing for certain. Bailey would be there, his loyalty unwavering, his love, a constant in a world that so often felt unpredictable. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of clarity, a quiet certainty that I wasn't alone. And as I drifted off to sleep, Bailey curled up beside me. I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together. When he lay there beside me, I was questioning myself if it was okay what we had done. Am I just weird, or is this pretty normal? I just don't know. What do you think of it? Please let me know in the comments. Thank you.